أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين سيما بقية الله في السماوات والأراضين روحي وأرواحنا وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. قال الله الحكيم في القرآن الكريم وسارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين صدق الله العلي العظيم. إن هذا صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. To talk about the life of two of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is a bit difficult with the amount of time we have, and especially because consecutively we have three occasions, two wilad and one shahada. But the beauty of the life of Ahlul Bayt is that the theme of their life is following the same principles. When you look at individuals in our lives, usually even two siblings, sometimes they could have very different values, different principles, different mottos of life. But in the life of the Ahlul Bayt, from the Holy Prophet to the Imam of our time, you see that values are the same values. Principles are the same principles. How they implement those values are different based on the needs of the time, requirement of the time, and the people, but the values are the same. They don't change what they believe in. They don't change the teaching of Islam for their own sake. And that is a very important concept. And when you look at the life of a 5th Imam and 10th Imam, which there's probably hundreds of years between these two Imam, that gap does not make them to act very differently. They're pretty much the same way. Our 5th Imam lived at the end of the Umayyad dynasty, and our 10th Imam lived at the Abbasid Caliph and dynasty. But their stand against was exactly the same. We don't see that they somehow approve the action of the oppressor. They don't get along with any tyrant, and they're always outspoken about justice, about the truth, about haqq, as long as they had the opportunity. But their limitation made them to express their ideas differently. For example, in the time of our 5th Imam, he had a chance of actually teaching, having a course to educate, train the students who later on a big portion of our jurisprudence and fiqh is based on the tradition from our 5th Imam and 6th Imam. It's because they had that chance. If our first Imam, Imam Ali had the same chance, he would have done the same thing. But Imam Ali is dealing with a different time, different need. He's dealing with internal issues. He's dealing with wolves and in the skin of sheeps. Muawiyah, corrupt companion, Khawarij, those who ideologically are corrupted. So his approach is we have to deal with this cancerous cell before being able to actually start any treatment. We need to first get rid of the problem. But in the time of Imam Baqir alayhi salam, he had that chance to actually train a student. That's the reason in some estimate, they said there are more than 30,000 traditional hadith from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. But if you go to other Imam like Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, we don't have that many tradition. And why is that? That's very obvious for somebody who spent estimate from 9 years to 14 years in prison, and in majority of the time he was censored and he was under control. Of course you cannot expect to have so many tradition to get out from the prison and reach people and even reach us. And our 10th Imam is the same story, that our 10th Imam, Imam Ali al-Naqi, he is first Imam was actually brought into Askar, to the army camp. And his son, Imam Askari, that he has the title, he was born in the same environment. So, but our 10th Imam was also under surveillance, constant surveillance. So that's the reason, if you look at the combination of tradition, all of them that we have from our 10th Imam is not that many compared with Imam Muhammad alayhi salam. But the principles are the same principles. But the beauty of it is that when you actually read this tradition, you see that the tradition is applicable to the need of the people of their time. I want you to listen to this statement again. Hadith, the values and principles are the same and exact principles, but it's based on the need of the people. For example, let's say if we talk about prayers in general, sometimes you're talking to the people who are not travelers, so of course you're talking about the prayers that are suitable and related to them. But if somebody is, let's say, in war, you don't talk about them the normal prayers. You talk about Salatul Khawf, the prayers in the time of fear. So you teach them about that because that's a suitable prayer for that time. So when it comes to our values, we have the same values. They don't change. They're constant in every age, in every era. But sometimes the need of people is not the same one. For example, one tradition by our 10th Imam, Imam Ali Al-Nabi alayhi salam, is that to have good assumptions of people is at the time that justice is prevalent to injustice. It means that you assume the best about people when at least the majority of the time you see justice, you see idala. You don't see that much oppression. But at the time that oppression, it has the majority, has the power, has the upper hand, at that time you should not be that gullible to trust everyone. And that's the need of the people. Because the time of Imam Ali Al-Nabi, who says and teach people about this hadith, is the time that there are spies in every corner. That in some cases, our Imams, they're hiding messages inside canes and sending it out for their followers to read. They couldn't even say something. Because there were people in the name of Shia, that we are the follower of the Imam, they would come and sit down among others and they take the message. Does that ring any bell, by the way? Okay, I'll leave that to you if you get my, I think you catch my drift. They come in the name of the Shia, they sit in the circle of the Imam, and then they took those messages out, and if it's something against and somehow threatening to the Caliph, there will be repercussion not only for the Imam but also for those Shias the Imam talked to. So Imam said at that time you cannot be gullible to trust everyone. You have to be more vigilant and be more cautious about that. But the values is the same value. The Quran said we have to have the best, we have to have husnul dhan toward people. But at the same time, the same book said when a corrupt person comes to you, don't trust them. Man ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu, right? You cannot just take one verse, oh, you always assume the best about people. That's correct. Unless that person is fasiq. There's exception. If they're a corrupt person, if they have a history of betrayal, you cannot trust them. You have to do an extra research. You have to make sure, examine the report before you trust them. So that is the principle that is the same one, but is applicable to the need of the time. So inshallah, when next time we're reading any of the Ahlul Bayt, keep that in mind. What is the application of this hadith in my time? That is important. For example, in some tradition we have that one of the signs of the true Shias is that those who conceal our secrets. And when you read it, it's like, what secrets? Is the Shia, ideology has any secretive, weird rituals, human sacrifices or something that we try to conceal it? No, it's talking about the time that the Imam says something, and as a Shia of that time, you should not take the message out to the Caliph. If they know about it, they're going to put the life of a lot of people in jeopardy. For example, if Imam alayhi salam, we have in a certain time, Imam said, don't bring your khums to me again. Imam did that actually. In the time of our 7th Imam. Imam said, okay, from this moment on, as Imam, I'm telling you, don't bring khums. No khums on you anymore. Because that was the way that the people, the Shias, were detected. Oh, this person is paying khums. They come, so probably they're the one that they are very obedient and they will listen to the Imam, they will give them that sense of power that maybe they could be a threat against us. So Imam alayhi salam made sure that there's going to be some form of adjustment to this rule in order to save people's lives. And you say, how is that possible? Same rule applies if you're and your life is in danger. It's permissible for you to even eat haram and najis food, right? Because you have to preserve your life. So in some cases that the Imam used that knowledge, that jurisprudence, in order to preserve life. So there are secrets that they should not take out. But in our time, it doesn't mean don't take the message of Ahlul Bayt out there, conceal it. It's opposite. In our time, we have to actually make sure people hear about this. They become more familiar with the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, but specifically with our actions, not with words. As Imam Sadiq beautifully himself, he said, كُنُوا دَعَةً لِلنَّاسِ بِغَيْرِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ. If you want to be a true preacher, do it with your actions, without your tongue. Live a good life yourself. You can be a perfect promoter of Islam and promoter of the school of Ahlul Bayt. Actions are usually the loudest statement anyone can make. And opposite of that is true. So I know, alhamdulillah, when it comes to words, we're good. Eastern culture, usually we have a special attention. Doesn't matter if you speak Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, any language. If you go to the East, you see there's a lot of poetry, a lot of manipulation of language, a lot of metaphors. That's part of the culture of the East. And with that comes that we love to express ideas, and even this setting of giving lectures, right? But the difference is that when we talk a lot about something, we have to be concerned that how much of what we say is actually has a sign in our life, as a living example in our lives. Even when I give advice to my child, you have to be more respectful toward elders. How I treat elders is much, much more important than me telling my kids to be nice to elder people, right? But thinking about that, it requires a bit of awareness, because ghafla sometimes takes over. We become heedless. We ignore what we see, and then that's unfortunately the result of repetition. When we do something over and over, it becomes a habit, and out of that habit, we take that awareness away. We do it like a muscle memory. You do it because you're used to doing it. There is not actually a thought process behind that. You do it because you do it. And that's the reason it is important, the presence of the heart in the time of salah that has been repeated so many times, that when you pray, make sure don't let it become just a muscle memory, a habit for you to do, but actually you think about it. Who are you standing before? What are you saying? Who are you that you're talking to? The one who created you. So when you have all those reflections at the time of prayers, prior to your prayers, it will break that cycle of habits. So tonight, inshallah, I want to talk about one lesson from the life of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, which, by the way, going back to my introduction, the life of any of the Imam, any of the prophets of God, because we believe, as we said in Ziyarat Jami Kabira, that the Ahlul Bayt, they are warathatul anbiya. They are the one who inherited the message of the prophets. They didn't bring something new. They're just continuing the same path. They are continuing the same path and direction. So if you look at the life of any prophet of God, our prophet, especially seal of the messenger Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the life of the 12 Imam, you will see that they have this principle in common. And what is that principle? The principle is dua and reflection, dua and supplication. It's not a replacement for action. Supplication, it is not a replacement for action. So it means when you do dua, we cannot forget about amal. In the month of Rajab, there is this dua that we recite, right? Ya man arjuhu li kulli khair wa amanu sakhatahu min kulli shar. And there is a tafsir about this ziyarah. It's been written by multiple scholars. One of them is by Shahid Sadr. And under this tafsir, this is the principle he talks about. That because this dua and so many other du'as and supplication has a very significant, important and significant role in our tradition, sometimes there's this misunderstanding and misconception that because I pray, it means that all I have to think about is my du'as and prayers. And this existed from the time of the Ahlul Bayt. This existed. For example, there was a group called Murji'ah, and they used to live at the time of Imam Baghr alayhi salam. Murji'ah were a group of people that their message was very similar to some form of pseudo-Sufism today. And Murji'ah used to say, you know, all that matters is your heart. If you love God in your heart, that's all that matters. You know, Day of Judgment is not as difficult as they say. You know, God is merciful. The approach was, you know, just more about an idea out there of religion rather than you doing something about building a life after death or making sure that your salvation in the Day of Judgment is a guarantee or not. That was their approach. And Imam Baghr alayhi salam ideologically challenged them multiple times. And today we have the same issue. And the time of Imam Ali alayhi salam, we have people who unfortunately make the same mistake. For example, there's a tradition that Imam Ali alayhi salam saw a man with his camel, and the camel had some disease. It was visible. There was some signs that you could see that this camel is sick. And Imam Ali alayhi salam asked him, what did you do about this? Did you try to, you know, find a solution for the problem, for this sickness? Did you seek any treatment? And he said, yes, I did. And Imam Ali alayhi salam asked him, what did you seek? And he said, dua. I prayed to God that my camel get better. And Imam alayhi salam said, mix your dua with qatiran. Qatiran is a special oil that they will use for the treatment of that camel. So make your dua, but make sure you use that medication for your camel in order to get this result that you're expecting. So it means in the time of Imam alayhi salam, there were people who did not understand what dua means. And this is an important principle, that dua has its own role. For example, this is a famous statement, right? The one, hasbi Allah fahuwa hasbu, right? The one who counts on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is sufficient for him. The one who trusts in Allah, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. The one who relies on Allah, Allah is sufficient. So this, unfortunately, was misunderstood by some individuals at the time of the Prophet, at the time of Ahlul Bayt, and even today. And that is that if I make du'as, that is the guarantee that I will get what I want. And there's no requirement for action. And the balancing these two is the issue. Because some say, if I'm going to go and find a solution for my problem, what is the purpose of dua? What's the benefit of dua? I do it myself. The benefit of dua is that you remember that your ability to find a solution is not from you. You did not get that talent yourself. You did not have that power yourself. You are in debt absolutely 100% to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes our actions will not give the result we want. And when you do dua, you understand that there is an upper hand, there is a bigger and much, much more powerful control and supervision in the world than your free will. That is the benefit of dua. That I do my part, but I understand it is not a guarantee that I get what I want. Because there is a designer behind every action. And the benefit of going and actually doing the work is that understanding that the work that we do is the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided. Again, going back to that wrong perception, ill perception. You know, we have so many of these examples and stories and metaphors, right? That, for example, we have that a couple were living in an apartment, and every day one of the couples, we don't mention the husband or wife, doesn't matter, that's unimportant. One of the couples was complaining that, oh, look at this neighbor, that they had basically somebody living across them, and from the window you could see the other basically apartment. So look how lazy they are. They don't clean this window. They're so lazy. These people, they have no sense of, decency, to have some responsibility. Clean your window, clean your window. And this was a complaint of one of the spouses every day. And one day when they came and sat down on their table to have breakfast, so, oh, finally they cleaned their window, finally. And the other spouse said, no, they didn't. It was our window that was dirty. I cleaned it. It's our perception that we see something from one angle, from another angle, it could be very different. That we blame others for some problem that we're responsible. For example, sometimes we're so rude to people that people escape us, run away from us, and then we say, people are not warm anymore. These cell phones, make people to be isolated, and they become so indifferent. No, it's not. There have impacts, but that does not justify your rudeness, your lack of manners. But it's easier always to look at it from an angle that we're not to be blamed, others are to be blamed. So when it comes to dua, the same concept has to be applied. And when we pray and we actually go, is that people say, and again, I receive calls on daily basis for istikhara. Can you do istikhara for us? Tell me what it is. And I always tell them, for istikhara, which means seeking answers from Allah. And you can use Quran, was one of the methods to use Quran. If you're confused in a matter of making a decision, use Quran. But I always tell them, did you do research? Your research about the decision, and still you're confused. They say, yes, we did research, it didn't help. So did you consult with others, with the expert related to that field, that they help you to make a decision, mashwara, and it still didn't help you to make a decision? And if the answer to both is yes, then it's okay. You exhausted all channels, now is the time for istikhara. You have no other option. You cannot just flip a coin, right? That's better to say, okay, let's see from the perspective of Allah. Ya Allah, I tried the ways that you asked me, and now I'm coming for answer. But usually you don't get to that place easily. But there were individuals that they were calling me on weekly basis. Every week they had a couple of istikhara, and I told them, you're not doing research, you're not doing consultation. It is impossible to be confused and 50-50 about every single decision. There's no 100% in any decision. I'm 100% sure, because there's a lot of unpredictable factor in the world. I open this business and tomorrow, I don't know, the stock market crashes or something happens and a war started. I don't know about any of that. So there's no 100%, but there is usually a heavier side. I'm 80% sure, 70% sure. If even 80, 70, then you tawakkul, rely on Allah, and you do it. No need to go to istikhara. And I remember when I explained this process to someone, said, Sheikh, I know that, I know about research, I know about consultation, but I want to trust God. I want to see what God says. And I said, do you think when you go research and when you consult with people, God is not there? Who gave you the ability to research? Who gave you that intelligence to research? Who gave you that power of intellect to understand right from wrong? Who gave you that? Right? Or when you consult with people, with the wise people, who created them? Who created this union, this brotherhood, this society, this nation? Who created that? It's like that story that, we have somebody send his son, go get the neighbor's ladder. And the son went and came back and said, the neighbor said, we won't give you our ladder. So go beg them, beg them to give you. We need the ladder. So the son went back, came back after a few minutes, said, I begged, but they didn't help. Said, you didn't beg enough. Go start weeping. So we really need it. We cannot, please, 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 pretty please, can we have the ladder? So he went for the third time, came back empty-handed, said, I did everything I could. I dragged myself on the ground. They didn't care. So these are stingy and cheap people. Go bring our own ladder. Go bring our own ladder. Go bring her a letter. We think that istikhara is from Allah and the other two is not from us, when everything is belong to Allah. It's not that I made that intelligent myself. And I cannot make it shortcut. Oh, let me see what Allah says. When Rasulullah consulted with Salman, who we are to say that we don't want to consult, did Rasulullah did istikhara when the battle of Khandaq? Or he consulted with his companion and took the opinion of Salman? That is that misunderstanding. That's ill conception of the idea of when we have to do the right way of dua. So when we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when we actually actively pursue our goals, they're not two different things. They're two sides of the same coin. One is that you pray to Allah, the Creator, to help you on your path, to guide you on your path, to give you strength in your path. And the other side is now all the tools and all the means in my disposal, I will use it in order to get the goals. Inshallah is the right goal. So we need both of them. So in the time Imam Bagha that we have that he was working. In Medina, it's very hot, he's sweating. He has a shovel in his hand, farming. We have a man called Muhammad ibn Munkadir. Somebody who thought that he knows about Islam. He passed by and said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, you're the son of the Prophet. It's a shame that you're wasting your time working for this life. It would be more suitable, it's much more appropriate for you to be in your house or in masjid praying, reading Quran. Why you're wasting your time here? Why you're not busy with the worship of God? That is that misunderstanding. That is that wrong conception of understanding what the meaning of ibadah and worship is. So we have that as Imam his son was wiping his sweat, he said, I swear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if at this moment the angel of death takes my soul, I will die in the moment of worship. This is an act of worship. Because the Prophet ﷺ said this himself. You have that a young man, probably very well built, tall, came to the masjid. One of those people that when they come, alhamdulillah, you look at them, said, you don't say, they had somehow, some people when they're physically built, we think that they stole our food for some reason. We feel upset that why they look so good for some reason. Inshallah, we're not one of those. When we see somebody very healthy, very well built, said, MashaAllah, may Allah protect them. That's the statement you make, right? So when they come, same person, a young man came to the masjid of the Prophet, and the companion said, what a great young man. But the pity is that he doesn't come much to masjid. He doesn't spend much time in worship. And Prophet said, what does he do? He said, he's busy with work. And Prophet said, if he works to not be a burden on other believers' shoulder, to stand on his own feet, he is doing worship. He is doing ibadah. If that's the reason he works. To stand on his own feet. To be self-sufficient. Or he works for his family to provide for his family. That is also ibadah and worship. So in both cases, he's doing ibadah. Don't criticize him for that. That the hadith, this is a Prophet's word, and Imam Baqir, the Imam who's a successor of the Prophet, said the same thing, that if I die at this moment, I will not die in vain, I will die in ibadah because I'm providing for my family. And we should understand that. But balance it. Because sometimes it's not about family anymore. We don't go to masjid, we don't go to Eid prayers, we don't do any wajib because of dunya. That is not about providing for family or to be self-sufficient. That is usually for glory of dunya. When you go out of your way to buy a luxury car, to have some luxury entertainment and whatever is the something that considered more than what you need, that is not about earning for your family or for your independence. That is literally the luxury of this dunya. Then you slip to the extreme. The same way that person who sit down in their house and expect other people to pay for their expenses and do nothing because of their worship, people has to take care of them. They're at the extreme, and in the ifrat and tafrit, The other one is always involved with the dunya and money and making money, no family, no social relationship with people, no masjid, no faith, nothing. Only and only job, and people are actually proud of that. So, Sheikh, you know, I go to my work and I come back and I didn't even have a one day off. I only go to work. And I tell them, do you really need this much work? It's not enough for you to work 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and one day spent with your family? Because for money, there's always a reason to spend it, right? I promise you. You want an example of that? There's a couple of examples of people who won lotteries, right? They won millions of dollars. They won lottery, and then you see a few years later they became homeless. How did that happen? They spend it on something. There's always a reason to spend money on. I promise you, just take a look at the amount of bills you get every month. And I promise you, if you want to, you can add additional 10 bills. You can. You can't? I promise you, you can. Pay for this and that service and that service. What if you want to do this? So it's that imbalance that happens, that people who cut off totally from God, from their faith, from their spirituality, and those who totally cut off from the responsibility and they become a leech. They become a burden on other people's shoulders. And that is not the teaching of Imam Baqir alayhi salam. That is not the teaching of the Prophet. As Prophet said, ibadat and worship has 70 parts, right? 70 pieces. And 69 pieces of that is in what? Seeking halal bait. Seeking and earning halal income. 70 pieces is worship. 69 of that piece, imagine if it's a cake, you cut it to that. 69 is to earn a halal income. One piece is the rest of it, to do once in your lifetime Hajj, to pray on time, to fast in Ramadan. That is the one piece. So that is the principle. Inshallah, that's enough for tonight. If I learn one thing, inshallah, and if every one of us want to take one lesson from tonight, and it's the life of Imam Baqir and Imam Hadi and the Prophet and all of the Ahlul Bayt, because they have the same motto. That is the same concept, same principle. That dua is not a replacement for action. There are two pieces of the same puzzle in order to be able to accomplish the best outcome, the best result. You have to make dua and do the work as well. That's the reason we have, when you leave your house, say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, recite Ayatul Kursi, recite, Mu'awwadhatayn, Qul a'udhu bi, recite the du'as, ask Allah for protection, then go to your work. And go. That's the time you have to go and make a halal income. And be aware of consequences of our actions too. When I say be active, I don't mean do everything and do anything. Do the right thing. Because sometimes when we focus so much on being active, it means do anything. As long as you're active, it doesn't matter what you do. It is important to think before every action. Is this action, what kind of consequences, what kind of repercussion this action will have? I can make money, I can sell alcohol, and so I don't care. It's people's responsibility, right? It's not my problem. They should be smart enough to not buy from me. In our faith, I cannot say that. It's an action that I have to care about the outcome. I cannot be accomplice in that crime. And that's applied to any other job. Somebody wants to steal some money from a corporation, from any source, I cannot be accomplice in that, in the name of being active and making money. There should be lines, there should be red lines to maintain. But especially be careful about for action. For action, Imam Baqir alayhi salam said, this is a hadith and I finish with this hadith. Imam Baqir alayhi salam said there are 4 actions that they have an immediate consequence in this life. Because there are some sins that will come and hunt us later, at the night of the grave, at the barzakh, at the day of judgment. But Imam alayhi salam said these actions, they have an immediate consequence. You will see somehow a slap on the face in this dunya. And that is why? Because Allah designed this system for these actions, for these sins. What are them? Number 1, and I just go with the translation to save some time. Imam Baqir said number 1 is that when you do something good to others, when you do ihsan to others, and they return the favor with harming you. You do good to someone, and instead of saying thanks, they harm you in return. That will have an immediate punishment in this dunya. So this is about everyone. Let's say as parents, why you say aqqa walidain? If your parents curse you, you're doomed for life of this life and hereafter, because that is one of the example of this one. That the parents do good to you, ihsan to you, and in return, if you harm them, you disrespect them, you insult them, you humiliate them, it will be the punishment in this dunya. Your husband helps you to get education, to make you a successful person, and when you get to the top, you betray them. Your wife helps you, provide for you, create a supportive environment for you to achieve success, to have a good family, to have a peace of mind, and then in return, you betray them. The adhab of that, this is the word of the Imam alayhi salam, it will be immediate in this dunya. That's number one. So make sure, as Quran said, Hal jaza'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan, is that the answer of someone doing good to you, helping you, is accept doing good in return? That means it's very obvious, that decent. That's not even a great sacrifice. If somebody help you to help them in return, that's decent. Even animals kind of do that. So for somebody to even break this rule, there will be a, we call immediate kafar, immediate adhab and punishment in this dunya. That's number one. So be aware of that. If somebody helped us, make sure parents, spouse, anyone, even teachers. Why we have so much tradition to honor teachers? They're doing something good to you. The same one in return. Why said honor your in-laws? Why? Because they're doing something good to you. They give them a piece of their life, the piece of their heart to you. The minimum is to return the favor with maintaining the respect, protecting their gift. Number two, Imam Baqir alayhi salam said, when you fulfill your promise and ahad and covenant, and the other side break it. When I fulfill my side of the promise and others don't. So people who have no sense of loyalty, those who don't fulfill their promise, you cannot count on them. They will see the consequence in this dunya. You know, it's interesting. I encourage you to read about successful businessmen. Some of them, the one that they basically built their empire from nothing. A lot of them, the decent one. I'm not talking about that they inherited a lot of money. Again, rings a bell, right? No, it doesn't. Okay, I'll let that go. So not that kind of people that they did not achieve that success. They had it. Those actually built the success. A lot of them, they will tell you the reason they were successful in their own field was because they were trustworthy in their field. People can't count on their words. If they say they do something, they deliver. Even, this is the beauty of, the word that we're talking about, that even if you're not a believer, even if you're an atheist, when it comes to the importance of fulfilling your promise, you see the result of that in your life, even if you're a non-believer. And you will be punished for breaking your promise, even if you are a believer, you will be punished. We have a tradition that when it comes to making a promise, there is no exception between dealing with a good person or an evil person. If you make a promise to an evil person, still you have to maintain it. I'm not sure about the source of this hadith, so don't quote me on this. But I heard it from one of the ulama who's trustworthy, who said that Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam said, if the killer of my father comes and bring me the sword that he killed Imam Hussein with, and give it to me as an amana, and he trusts me with that, and I give him my word that I will keep it for him, if he come back and later on and ask for it, I will give it back to him. That my words mean something. Either I don't accept, or if I accept, I have to fulfill it. Even to my enemy. Even to my enemy. That's the reason you cannot find one example in the life of all the Ahlul Bayt that they said something and they didn't do it. They didn't deliver. That was number two. Inshallah, I leave the rest for another time because I'm out of time. I want to, inshallah, keep it to a certain time limit that be able to remember at least some of the information provided. So number one, as I said, principles of the life of the Imams are the same, but based on the needs of the people, they deliver it based on applicable to their needs, based on the situation. And the principle, the value that you have to keep in mind, I have to keep in mind, that the dua and actions are two pieces that is required in order to achieve success. One is not a replacement for another. We need both of them. And I said the benefit of each of them, what could be. And lastly, I mentioned the hadith, that there are some actions that they have immediate consequences. Be aware of them. So when I say be active, think about what it does to you or to other people. Think about the repercussion. And the two actions I mentioned, one of them was the importance of fulfilling your promise, right? To make sure never break a promise, because those who are known to break their promise, or sometimes we break a promise because we're forced to. Something happens is out of our control. You want to be somewhere, you get into an accident, you made a promise, an emergency happens. That is not you pre-planned to break a promise. Sometimes you say your word, but at the moment you're saying you're planning to break it, right? So I'm telling you I will be, good in order for you to sign this, in order for you to come back, in order for you to just, stop doing what you're doing. I will pay you this amount of money in a month, but I know I won't be able to pay it. That is the breaking promise I'm talking about. But life happens. Emergency happens. And we have to be understanding of that. Rather than people who make a promise and deliberately break it. That will have immediate consequences. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also the second, number two, was the one that if somebody did good to us, they did us a favor, we return the favor with harming them. We return their good and ihsan with sayyi'ah, with somehow hurting them. That will be an immediate punishment, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a promise that those who are not following the basic of human decency, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلٌ, they will not be even considered to be in the level of animals. So may Allah inshallah give us the tawfiq to recognize our potential as a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a successor of God who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blew into our existence from His own soul. That we have so much potential to reach, to recognize that, to give ourselves that value, to don't compare ourselves, oh, I thank God I'm not vicious like an animal. Compare ourselves with the best of people. Compare ourselves with the people such as Ammar, Salman, Bilal, and so many pious people in the human history. And may Allah give us that tawfiq for the honor of the Imam Baqir alayhi salam and Imam Ali al-Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam. Recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.